Well, hello, everybody. It's Dr. Ron Oberstein with Dr. Dan Murphy. And Dan, welcome to our video chat. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, and hello to the Life West community. Hi, everyone.
Yep, Life West community and friends, right? Because we have
and friends, yeah.
Yeah.
I consider them part of our community, yeah, for sure.
I know. You and I are, right?
Yeah.
We're not alumni, but we're definitely there. But hey, anyways, Dan, let's jump into it because I know that, you know, with the COVID thing happening and people are able to watch this video, I really want to just be able to give them have you share with, you know, some really great information just about immunity and about where we're at right now. I mean, obviously, you know, different groups came out and basically said that chiropractic doesn't help immunity. They went through research studies and they really kind of did an abstract, I think, or they wrote a paper, I should say. And I've been speaking to a lot of scientists lately, but I want to just get your viewpoint. You know, you're one of our top instructors at the college and you lecture all over the world. So I'll leave it to you.
Well, even potentially more important than lecture at the college and whatever, I've been a chiropractor for 42 years. To claim there is no link between chiropractic and immunity, I think is short-sighted. In my very first year in clinical practice, a lady, her name is Paula, said, Dan, prior to me becoming your patient, I had pneumonia every single year. This is the first year I have not had pneumonia. And that's in my first year. I have seen immunological responses to what we do. And I think even my introduction to chiropractic was as a consequence of an immunological problem. I spent about an hour yesterday at one of the most famous chiropractors in the world who started his career with me. He was my patient. He came into me for an immunological problem. He is now one of the most famous chiropractors in the world, and he started with an immunological problem that cleared up completely under chiropractic care.
Right.
What is even more interesting to me, he shared with me the story that literally 21 years ago, after he had been in practice for about a decade, he was in a car accident and all of his immunological things came back, and he immediately went back to the chiropractor and they all went away again.
Right.
That there's some sort of link between mechanical integrity in immunology. And to claim there's no evidence, there's no great evidence. There's no clinical trials. But there's all kinds of biological plausibility evidence that would suggest there is a link. I do not think that any chiropractor should claim that what we do cures infections. But I do think it is plausible to claim that chiropractors help host health, and that alone helps the immunological cascade. Even as we look at the moments in history that we're in right now, the majority of people that are succumbing to the coronavirus are people who are not well to begin with. And that our perspective as chiropractors is, what can we do to be healthier? And healthier includes all facets of health, which would include, of course, immunological health. What can we do to enhance immunological health? And the things that I like to talk about, and things, in fact, that we didn't talk about earlier, is this book. This book this was a mainstay of my classes for over a decade, and it's called The Coming Plague. And the author is Laurie Garrett, a Harvard microbiologist. Look at the thickness of this book.
Yeah, it's pretty thick.
Now, but here's the real key. If you read the title, it says The Coming Plague. You read the subtitle, it says Newly Emerging Diseases in a World Out of Balance. She's talking about innate intelligence in the same way that chiropractors do. That there's an innate balance in when we stray too far from that, there is a price to be paid. I think it's the great environmentalist John Muir who said, in nature, which we are in, if you tug on one thread, it influences everything else in nature. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a lot of reasons that the world has strayed away from innate balances. And that anything that helps us to recapture that, I think, is noteworthy. Specifically, though, when you talk about immunology and the potential of a chiropractor to influence that in a positive way, I think that it goes back into history. And I think the history is best described in this book by Nancy Appleton, who's a PhD. And it's titled The Curse of Louis Pasteur. What it really is, it is a historical accounting of two of the most important players in health history, Louis Pasteur and his nemesis, Claude Bernard.
Right.
They're both from France. They're both well-recognized top physicians of the era. They're both lecturing at the same conferences, and they have an opposing perspective. Louis Pasteur, his perspective is, as reviewed by Nancy Appleton, is that whether you are sick or ill is in direct relationship to exposure to pathogens. And therefore, if you can kill pathogens, you are healthy. And then he quickly points out you can kill pathogens with heat, and killing a pathogen with heat, we've got to call that process something. Let's call it pasteurization. So he named it after himself. Mm-hmm. The person that was the nemesis, though, and there's a whole, field of healthcare based upon the nemesis, Claude Bernard. Claude Bernard is honored in the modern era as the father of modern physiology. This is a top physiologist of the era. He is rebutting Louis Pasteur about exposure and saying the problem with your pitch, Louis Pasteur, is that there are countless never-ending examples of individuals who are exposed but don't get sick. He says the variable that you are ignoring is host health. We've got to look at the host health. Even today, even in the news today, I heard that 25 to 50% of the people that are spreading corona have zero symptoms. What's with that? Why is it that people can have exposure, they actually have the pathogen in the body, and yet they are apparently completely well, and yet able to spread the pathogen? We as modern chiropractors never deny the exposure component, and we concur with all of the recommendations. Don't get exposed. Do everything that they're telling you not to get exposed. But if you happen to get exposed, what are the best chances that it will be a minor illness or maybe an asymptomatic illness? What are those factors that would reduce the risk that one would actually die, and that would to be as healthy as you possibly can? There are chiropractic things that can be done and chiropractic adjuncts that can be done. Our chit-chat in the office is pretty much the non-chiropractic adjuncts, yet in the office we say, and this is the chiropractic component. Right. We have drawings of it. I have articles on it. I collect the drawings and articles on it, and I think that they're absolutely fabulous. I think hands down, the most important is this. If you look at this book, Lauren Sampeyrak from the University of Colorado at Boulder, it's a guy, we Google him. This is the third edition of his book, and it's titled How the Immune System Works. Take a look at the picture on the cover. This big green monstrous thing there, that's a macrophage. Now this is critically important. The macrophage is the primary player of the innate immune response. Chapter 1 of this book is an overview. Chapter 2 of this book is called the innate immune response, innate immunity. Yeah. The innate response, he uses it just like a chiropractor does. It's that it is an immunological response that is genetic. It is hardwired into the organism, including the human organism. And that the primary player of the innate response is this guy, the macrophage. In this particular cover of his book, take a look down here, my finger at the very front there. Yep. That is a pathogen. Of course, the news today is a viral pathogen. This pathogen is a bacterial pathogen, but it's the same thing. The macrophage sees the pathogen, says, whoa, you don't belong here. And it grabs it, and it breaks it down, and it creates a cascade of events that includes the nervous system. In fact, specifically, it includes branches of both the vagus nerve and the sympathetic nervous system that creates this adaptive immunological cascade that protects you. But the point that Lawrence Sempeyrak makes here is that if the macrophage ignores an invader, you will never make an antibody to that invader, and the result is you're going to have complications. Of course, the real two key studies that would follow that is we have the article by Cohen out of Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
Right.
and it was published in the #1 medical journal in the world. It was published in the New England Journal of Medicine in August of 1991. Every chiropractor, every human, every cynic should read that article. They took 394 human volunteers. They dripped viruses into their noses, viral titers. The virus was associated with a common cold. Everyone had exact same exposure. Did everyone come down with a cold? No. Who came down with a cold? Only those that had elevated catecholamine norepinephrine. And when they talk about this, they say there's something about this neurological cascade that is immunosuppressive. And that something about that immunological cascade, they reference Walter B. Cannon out of Harvard Medical School. Well, if you take a look at the historic accounting, we have Claude Bernard is the original health host guy. The next guy sequentially is our very own Daniel David Palmer, D.D. Palmer. Yeah. We also have essentially at the very same time Andrew Still from osteopathy. But these guys in the scheme of history are minor players. Even though we're chiropractors, D.D. Palmer is a minor player. Most historians never heard of the guy, but the major player is Walter B. Cannon. He comes out 10 years after D.D. Palmer, and he's the chairman of the Department of Physiology at Harvard's medical school. He's a medical doctor. And this guy was top physiologist for literally 40 years. He died in 1945. He's top guy at Harvard, and he starts talking about host health, and he does it again, interestingly, through the nervous system. He interestingly does it through the sympathetic nervous system. And he interestingly talks about how subtly sick nerves, listen to this, subtly sick nerves fire more, not less. Increased sympathetic tone is immunosuppressive. And then you go back to the work of Core. Core is a PhD out of Princeton. Core says mechanical integrity inhibits sympathetic tone, and therefore it changes all sorts of physiology, including but not limited to immunology. The proof that mechanical inputs into the spine influence the sympathetic neurology is the Jiang study. It came out in the journal Spine in January of 1997. You look at this study and you're thinking, oh my gosh, these explain all of these century plus of chiropractic anecdotal observations. At the very same time that chiropractic is getting going, getting out of starting blocks, there is a parallel profession that is 21 years older than us. It's osteopathy. Because they were 21 years older than us when the 1918 flu pandemic came by, they are better documented. And if you want to read about osteopathy and the flu then, and they say potentially the flu in the future, it is well reviewed in the Journal of the American Osteopathic Association. It came out in May of 2000, an article written by the editor of JAOA, Journal of the American Osteopathic Association, Michael Patterson. If you look at that, it's incredibly interesting stuff because chiropractic and osteopathy are making similar claims. They're looking at data of the era, for the public health data, about how people are doing. Again, no one is claiming that we cure things, but to argue that we don't enhance health, I think, is a bad argument, because I think that there are plenty of arguments that we do, even though the best types of randomized clinical trial types of research is not done. And I think the only reason is finances. Chiropractic it doesn't have the money that other disciplines do. The results, I just don't think we get a chance to do that as much.
Yeah, and Dan, so to just extrapolate, what I just heard was that we know and we can prove that through chiropractic adjustments, or if you want to say in the osteopathic world, if they did the research, spinal manipulative therapy, which what we call an adjustment is an adjustment. Through that, we directly affect the nervous system. Proven, correct?
Well, yeah, that's not even controversial. I mean,
exactly.
We know for sure you influence the mechanical system. The next step is, does the mechanical system communicate with the sympathetic nervous system, which controls immunity? read the Ellenkoff study from the Journal of Pharmacological Reviews. I mean, it's a book. It's 44 pages long with 446 references. I counted them. If you read that, the whole immune system is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system.
Exactly.
That article is flawless. Now what we've got, because of the Jiang study, that the mechanical system, which is non-controversial, communicates with the sympathetic nervous system, which is non-controversial, that it influences immunology. They have proven that they communicate, they shake hands, a synapse in the seventh layer of the spinal cord. It's not even controversial.
Good. So if that's true, if that's true, which we know it is, so A equals B, correct? Adjustments equal, affecting the sympathetic nervous system, right?
Sure.
And then B is sympathetic nervous system, like you just said about in the studies, right? Affects the immune system. So A equals B, B equals C. And where it sounds like the disconnect is, especially with these researchers who say, well, chiropractic doesn't affect the immune system. We know A equals B and B equals C. It's taking A, which is the adjustment, all the way over to C, which is the immune system, right?
Yeah, that's well said. And that's the research we don't have. We don't have A to C, even though we say that, we say that kind of tongue in cheek, because remember, for example, there are studies published in top journals on osteopathic manipulation, where they'll measure levels of salivary immunoglobulin A pre and post adjustment and say, whoa, look, we can change it and change it in a meaningful way, almost instantaneously, say we're changing things. To me, this is getting increasingly close to A equals C, but I think that one study doesn't make science. I think that you need a lot of studies and you need bigger studies. And the real difficult thing is reading through what they call the covariables, because an adjustment on two individuals that are listed identical twins can have completely different responses depending on other variables. I think a very simple variable is one of our adjuncts. It would be levels of vitamin D. Vitamin D also controls the innate immune response. It got the Nobel Prize all the way back in 1903. We know that just variables like that. So we talk about those other variables, but we realize that to have real research on A equals C, you'd have to have good enough statisticians, et cetera, that would read through these covariables, which is a lot of the cost. These things are not cheap to do it right. I know that one day it will be done. I'm hoping it'll be done perfectly within our lifetimes. But it's like you and me always talk. It's expensive to do.
Right, but I think it's ridiculous to say when A equals B and B equals C, that A doesn't equal C. To me, I mean, the antecedent evidence that we have, the clinical evidence we have every day in our offices when we watch people get better, right? As people's bodies heal, become stronger hosts, right? It just doesn't, to make that conclusion that A doesn't equal C, but yet A equals B and B equals C. I mean, to me, I just, I get we need to do the research and we want to do the research, but to make that conclusion to me, that's a really far jump, to me, it is.
Well, I would agree. I'm thinking, we may not have best evidence, but to say there's no evidence, that's simply not true.
No.
And in fact, what I would do is I would end with maybe one final reference, unless you have something else you want to talk about.
Go. No.
Okay. So I know that we've done this, and I'm at Life West, as everyone knows. When this came out, I copied off 2 pages, and I made like 30 copies, and I ran around campus, and I gave it to every faculty member on campus that I could find, including sometimes I think there's cynical PhD types. I say, take a look at this. And the looks on their faces were precious, because this is such a good reference. It's titled Autonomic Failure. I always say, because it is the truth, Michelle and I have been together now for 17 years. This book is our only actual fight. It's a really big book. It's very authoritative. And the fight was over the cost of the book. It's a $900 book. So I said to her, buy me this book. And she goes, it's $900. And I go, so what's your point? She goes, why do you need a $900 book? And I say, because there's a picture that I cannot live without. And she goes, you want a $900 picture? I go, yes. Obviously, I won the argument because we got the book. By the way, also just interestingly, because you talk about the power of the human brain, if you take a look at this book, its author's a guy named Christopher Mathis, but the second author is Roger Bannister. This book came out in 2013. Roger Bannister is the first human to run a mile in less than 4 minutes.
Right.
At the time he did it, which was before my birth, he did it in 1954. Everyone thought it was physiologically impossible. No, that's a barrier that cannot be broken. As soon as he broke it, every major miler in the world broke it in the next month. It goes to show you the power of the human brain. What is doable and what is not doable. What I think is interesting is if you read about it, he's a medical doctor. He was in medical school at the time. They say he was hardly even training. He just went out there and blazed one. And we only know his name, even though everyone else broke the record. But since he's first, we know his name. If you look at page 242 of that book, you will see this picture. Now, so just so you can see it, I know there's a little bit of glare, which
it's coming through good.
Is it okay? Okay.
Yeah.
So if you just take a look at the glare there, through the glare, trying to center it up a little bit on the top, just take a look at that.
There's that macrophage again, right?
There's the macrophage. So we look right there. That's the macrophage. That's the big green guy right here. What this book says is that the macrophage is the key. If the macrophage ignores an invader, you never make antibodies against that invader. And it's more likely that, therefore, the elite fighters of the immunological cascade will leave you lacking in your increased risk of serious illness and even death. But what is key here is that he goes over, just like the Ellenclop study does, he goes over how the macrophage, the green nerve, is innervated by post-ganglionic sympathetic efferents. The post-ganglionic sympathetic efferents are innervated by pre-ganglionic sympathetic efferents. That would be that kind of purple there. The pre-ganglionic communicates with the mechanoreceptors. This is a Jiang study. And what is even more interesting, there is a magnification between the pre-ganglionic sympathetic efferent, which is the one the mechanoreceptors communicates to, and the post-ganglionic, which is what innervates the macrophage, amongst other things. The multiplication between the two is 120. You get a multiplication that is so unique in human physiology, and that multiplication is part of what we do at the college level, is undergrad stuff, is done in this book on 4 separate pages. It's called Autonomic Nerves by Linda Wilson Paul's killer good book. And this particular book goes over the 120 magnification. By the way, that book was given to me by an old chiropractor. The guy's still working. He's 86 years old. He started clinical practice in 1959. He's a triple dip, neurology, orthopedics, and radiology, and his dad was a chiropractor before him. He's second generation.
Wow.
And so he gave me this book last year, and I'm reading through this book and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is such good information. So just kind of looking at all the things that we sort of talk about, the biological plausibility. If we had the money, I think we could really do, I think, the best type of research. And it's inconceivable to me that the research would be counter to what I have observed as a clinician for 42 years. Plus, let's face it, I've had 70 associate doctors. It's not just my practice, just in my little circle, we're looking at that. And then all of my classmates, all of my colleagues, we have a brain trust group that we do up here in Auburn, California, just talking to them. And all of the differences that people have, all types of different immunological things, that we don't treat them, but we treat them mechanically to make them sound, which conceivably improves sympathetic control of immunity. And that's just kind of the front end. If we ever do another one of these, we should switch gears and go to upper cervical and start talking about the disynaptic communication of upper cervical to the nucleus tractus solitarius. Is another fabulous topic that easily fits right in. Particularly if we wire in Kevin Tracy's work from Immunological Reviews in June of 2009, there's even more evidence than I think some of the cynical people. It's kind of interesting to me how many cynical people are part of chiropractic. Yeah. I can see non-chiropractors being cynical, but how can you be in clinical practice and not have people tell you about different immunological problems improving while under care? And you're thinking, how can anyone deny that? I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe they don't see as many patients as we do. I don't know.
And that's what's going on. And unfortunately, it's happening. But I will tell you this. and for our viewers right now, who are non-Life West grads, this is what our Life West grads get. And they get 5 hours a week of Dan Murphy. And it's just incredible. And Dan, thank you so much. I know we're running out of time, but I want to do something that I don't do with anyone else, but I just want to do this because you know what? The information you give is so strong. And I know when we traveled, we just lectured in Israel in October. We lectured in Israel and we lectured in London together. And you had a website that people can go to. And I think it's what is it like $11 or $12 a month or something. I don't know.
$10 a month.
$10 a month, where they can get, reviews that articles and all the things that you do. Where do they go to sign up for that so that they can be informed?
Well, thanks for plugging it. It's a very easy sign up. It's on my webpage, www.danmurphydc.com, danmurphydc.com. And it's an article review thing. I've done it. This is my 21st year, and I do an article a week, and it's the ones that I think are most relevant to clinical chiropractic. I mean, the ones that I think this is the stuff I want to know, and consequently, and it's just about everything. It's about what about non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs? What about statin pharmacology? What about chiropractic maintenance care? What about chiropractic versus physical therapy? What about all of these different things that I think are relevant? And of course, all of the studies that I shared just off the top of my head, like the Ellenkoff study, I mean, these are just diverse studies. I review all of them because I think, man, chiropractors should know that this kind of information is out there. By the way, Ellenkoff it's through the National Institutes of Health. Our own government funded that study.
That's great.
I mean, you studies that I think are so relevant chiropractically, and yet they're funded by our own government. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how many people know? So I put them on my article review. It's real popular. People get it, and they say, oh my gosh, these are nice stuff.
And you know what? The great thing about it is that they get it in their inbox, I guess, and it's such an easy thing to read. And from everything that's been going on, in the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks with this COVID issue, I think one of the silver linings is that we just need to, and all of us, I mean, every doctor out there with whatever profession, we just need to learn, just really bone up again on the nervous system, bone up on the immune system, and like you said earlier with the different references, it's really about the host, isn't it? It's not so much about the pathogen as it is about the host. And that's been our philosophy, like you said, from D.D. Palmer. So Dan, you're amazing. You know how much I appreciate you. I know our viewers do too. And I hope this video goes viral in our profession. And I just want to thank you for taking the time to, out of you're in your office right now, right?
Yeah, I'm in the office right now. Michelle, we have to kick her out because she's noisy. She's a noisy guy.
Yeah, but you're seeing people, right? You've got emergency cases that are coming in, taking care of people. And it's like, and it's fine if people aren't also, but it's just, thank you for taking the time to be able to share your wisdom and your knowledge with the viewers and listeners, and just know that I appreciate you, like Wes appreciates you, and our profession appreciates you.
Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you.
Bye, everyone.
Good. Thank you for listening in. And if you have any questions, we'll put Dan's information on the bottom, or maybe it already was on the bottom, of how you can reach Dan or go onto his website. And thank you for listening. Take this information, get those journals, and let's really kind of start talking about chiropractic and health, right? Chiropractic A to B, chiropractic and B to C, right? So that we can make that happen. Thank you so much.